All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to we're on episode 74 of the Real World Productivity Q&A. Today is the 14th of March. Happy Pi Day to everybody out there who enjoys a good math joke, pun, or just a happy day every once in a while. So today we've got some really good stuff. We're going to be going over some questions from people who have joined the Real World Productivity Facebook group, talking about getting organized physically, like actually organizing information, as well as mentally, and then as well, like having the problem of jumping from task to task or switching thoughts, and that then is kind of leading into that disorganization, as well as being unproductive and not knowing really where to even start. And got some good examples and some tools and some areas I think that you can use, as well as some stuff I'm starting to look into that I'm excited to share. Before we jump into those, I just wanted to say too, if you're watching this live, hey, thanks for joining. Whether you're in the Real World Productivity Facebook group, if you're watching on the Facebook page, that's great. Feel free to ask questions below the video. I'll review those as I go, and as time allows, get to those. If you're checking out the replay, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, that's awesome too. You can always ask questions ahead of time by going to productivity.academy/questions, and I check those out beforehand, and so you can ask those, and as well as just joining live. The other thing I wanted to mention before we roll into questions is we've got a lot of really good podcast episodes coming out. I had a chance to talk to a couple people at a conference. Catherine Jones of CF Design School and Christopher Sutton of Musical U. These are both business owners who have some really good insights into team building, as well as mindset and mindfulness, which is an interesting topic that I haven't ever talked about on the podcast before. And something that's one of those kind of lifelong learning areas. Let's see, we've got 3 more podcast episodes after that. I've got another 2 scheduled with some really interesting people. I'll have more coming out about that. And then we're going to do an episode on the best productivity, time management, automation books, or just general reading from 2018. So kind of a roundup from the past year. And really looking forward to that. Might have a guest co-host on that. And then getting into some recommendations from people who have been on the podcast. So there's going to be a ton of good information coming out of that. So let's get into it. The first question came from Tony, who joined the Facebook group. And he was talking about feeling unproductive and not really knowing where to begin. And I think that that's it's common, but also a good problem to have. And I'll tell you why. I know that sounds a little funny, but if you're just feeling unproductive, then that's good, because you're realizing that there's a problem. And to me, that's kind of that first step of realizing, excuse me, that there's something you can do, or rather you want to do. And not knowing where to begin, there's a lot of great places you can start with. And I'm going to walk through a few, and I think that it's a matter of choosing or trying one kind of in sequence and seeing what fits you best. The very best thing I think that you could get like the highest leverage out of, get the best results, is to track your time. Because if you're feeling unproductive, but you're not sure, and you just have that feeling of like, I could be doing more, or things aren't moving as quickly as I want them to, then now it's a matter of putting some numbers and putting some actual data to this. And the downside of this is that tracking your time can be really difficult. It's something that I struggle with. I know a lot of people don't like doing it. And because it is difficult to do it by hand. There's a lot of cool tools out there that'll help you with this. But for someone who hasn't done this before, if that's you, I highly suggest just doing it on a piece of paper and just writing it down. And the way I do this is I just set a reminder, and I've done this once or twice so far, and every hour or two I go back, and in 15 or 30 minute increments, however I choose to do it, I write down what I was doing. But if you let that go much more than an hour or two, I mean like 4 hours from now, like I'll have a hard time remembering in 15-minute increments what I was doing. It just doesn't work for me. And part of it's finding out what works for you and making it work. So if you can track for like a week, that's great. I think it's pretty difficult, and if you're not sure where you're at right now, I think just tracking a couple of weekdays gives you that 80-20 where you can see, oh, okay, here's where things are kind of going off the rails. That's where I can get started. So if you're feeling unproductive and you don't know where to begin, I recommend that. Secondly, if you're not doing a daily review and you think that time tracking is either not for you or you try it and you find you just can't follow through with it, start a daily review. This is simple. It could take you as little as 5 minutes. I generally say you should allot 15 to 30. But to get started, you could use a piece of paper. You could use a journal like a Best Self journal or whatever your favorite journal is out there. But the idea is to gather all of your notes in, right, kind of in the getting things done style, whether you're using Evernote or Todoist, sticky notes, whatever it is you have. But review all of that and set, actions that need to be taken. If you have a note that says call so-and-so, well, then that goes into your to-do list or it gets deleted, right? One of those two things, so that you can take action on it. And as well as gathering everything together, you can then prioritize, because just like I said, you can take action on it or set it to take action or get rid of it. You want to prioritize all the things that you gather in. And it's a good time to delete stuff or hand it off, delegate it, or set things for today, tomorrow, whatever it is it needs to be done. The other thing that you want to do with this is to review your calendar. What's coming up? This is how, you wonder about those people who never miss meetings or aren't surprised by last minute things. Taking that 5 minutes to look through your calendar, especially for the day, is really important. And then maybe to do a quick glance out so that, end of the week, that's right, I've got this call, I've got a client, this or that, whatever it is. Just reminding yourself so that it's not, 2 in the afternoon and you get sideswiped by a meeting that you never saw coming. All right, things happen from time to time, but just taking those few minutes has a lot of benefits. Keeps you from worrying about, not knowing what's coming up, and it will make you more dependable. So I think that those two areas are the best places to get started. The lowest hanging fruit in terms of really high payoff is to time track, but it's also can be a little difficult. So I say give it a shot. If it doesn't work, come back to it down the road. In the meantime, start doing your daily review and make sure that you're gathering everything in from all of your, whatever you got, your to-do list, your paper notes, whatever it is. Look them over, prioritize them. If you can, batch them, so you're doing like or similar tasks together. And review your calendar and get going from there. And then lastly, I'll say on this, it's important to iterate. Nothing's going to be perfect. My system is really good. I really like the framework that I've built, but it's something that has to be tweaked for me. And I could sit down with you and create the framework and help you do that. And that's what the foundation actually is for. If you go to productivity.academy/thefoundation, but that's a framework, and then you customize it to what you need over time. Cool. All right. The next question is about getting organized. Okay, so this one's really good. So this was from Corinne, who also just joined the Facebook group, and it's kind of a two-part question. Which I'm going to kind of break apart and go into this first one and talking about not being able to get organized, like how to actually organize information. And I think that this is really important and broadly, so I'll start really broad. I'll just say that I think it's important that you have, or we have, a system that you use regularly. Like my method for organizing information is not perfect, but I use it regularly, and so it's something that it works for me because I've used it and I've refined it over time. That said, this was really good timing on this because I recently was recommended an article to read, I might butcher his name, but I think it's Tiago Forte, about his PARA, or P-A-R-A, method of doing things. Actually, let me switch over if I can. All right, so this is really good. I'll include the link, or actually I'll just pop it over right now and put it in the video. Okay, where he goes through this. So I am not going to go through all of the stuff he talks about, but it's really good in talking about cataloging information and how important this is in the digital age, which I totally agree with. In the sense that, hey, this is cool. I've got Evernote, I've got Todoist, I've got access to Google Drive or Dropbox. I can save everything. But then what do you do with it? How do you organize that? How do you quickly get access to that? Should I use tags? Should I use notebooks? Should I use like flags or elevated notices, like things like on Todoist where you can give things different levels of importance? And having a better system to deal with that is really crucial. So I'll say, check out the article. If that seems like something you want to use, that's great. But other than that, it's just sitting down, thinking about it, having a system and saying, here are the major areas I need to have organized, and here's what I'm going to try and use. Does it work across my systems? Which is important, I think. If you're using, like I am, Google Drive, I use Todoist, I also use Evernote and a couple other tools. Do things move well between them, or am I trying to do totally different things and it's confusing when I go from one to the other? I think that that's really important. Let's see. Oh, yeah, the other point on that I touched on earlier too, just about your daily review as well as just being organized. And okay, we want to be regular. That's good. We want to be somewhat consistent, and that we're trying to do the same thing. We're categorizing or organizing things that way. But realize too that you're going to improve it over time. Whether it's the foundation framework you're building based off of what I have. Let's say you go and read this article and you're like, okay, I'm going to check out the para way of organizing things, project areas, resource archives. I'm going to put that in, but it's important to iterate over time. And this comes in where you can, set in a review maybe once a week, once a month, and say, hey, are my systems working for me? And literally just saying, what about my systems has worked the best? And maybe what isn't working, or what's actually causing me problems, what's not saving me time, and iterating that for yourself over time. Because some of those little details will be different. Maybe it could come down to just you being more of a visual learner, and maybe you prefer images to written text, or maybe it's video. This is just one small example of the things that you need to consider. But it's just the reminder that it's not going to be at 100% right away. You just want to strive for that 80%, then get next time 80%, and over time that really just compounds on itself. Good question. Let me see. The second part of this question then was jumping from task to task or thought to thought, and then that leading to having some issues being organized. So I think this one has some really practical methods that you can put to use that are really cool. And I'll share one of those right now, which is using the Pomodoro technique, I think, which a lot of people are familiar with. The classic example is focusing and working on something for 25 minutes and then taking 5 minutes to do something else. I highly suggest getting up out of your seat. I like to go, not literally for like a walk, but maybe walk in the house, as in like going to get some water, or going and doing some laundry, and just doing something that literally physically removes me from what I was doing previously, which is generally sitting at a computer. So getting up and doing that I find to be really helpful in that it gives me a quick break, which my mind likes, but it also helps me really focus in for that 25 minutes when I come back, because there's a clear distinction between what I'm doing. And instead of just hitting the go button on that 25 minutes, I find that I hit the go button, and what I like to do is take a yellow sticky pad or my journal and just write down, be very clear with myself, what is it that I'm trying to do, or what is going to be done in 25 minutes. And I find that helps, because sometimes we get into that, like, okay, just go, and then the normal stuff happens. We get pulled over here, we do this, we do that. Or you think that like, oh, I'm going to work on that project or this one thing. And you end up either getting sidetracked or doing something else, where when you write it down, it becomes much clearer to yourself. Nope, that is exactly what I'm doing. I need to focus specifically on that. With that said, let's hop back over here to second monitor. I wanted to share with this. I love Tomato Timer. This is great. You can use a timer on your phone. You can do whatever you want. This is just at tomato-timer.com. And you can set it to whatever you want to do. I said the classic example is 25 minutes. If you want to do 45 and 15 or 15 and 5, you can do whatever you want. And you can just go in here into the settings, change all that stuff around, and basically make it work for you. Cool. So hopefully that's helpful. I think that those are some great ways the Pomodoro technique is a great way to help yourself focus in, and if you can use those even too within bigger time blocks. So if you're doing like a 3-hour work period, I find that those can be helpful and kind of help avoid that burnout, so that you're not ending the day, and this is something else I believe in. What's the point of being super focused and I got all my stuff done and I was so productive, and then you get to 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., you're done for the day, and you just feel like garbage, you're just trashed. That is also my goal, is to not do that and not to have other people do that. I want to get my work done. I want to be highly productive. I want to be very efficient. I also want to then enjoy that time that I've created for myself by being productive and efficient. And part of that is taking breaks and knowing when to do that. And, sometimes you have to automate that with literally a timer or something else, and finding out what works for you is like getting away from the computer, walking, doing these other things so that you're really enjoying the whole day you have at your disposal. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, if you're watching live, thanks for checking it out today. And if you were watching the replay, you can always join live. There should be a link below somewhere to come join us live in the Real World Productivity Group. And if you're checking it out on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button. Stay up to date with these as well as product reviews, a bunch of videos, time management stuff, automation stuff, a lot of good stuff coming up as well. And then if you're ready to take things up and really build the framework that I was talking about, I highly suggest please go pick up the foundation, go read it, put it to work. It's something you can read in a couple hours, and literally you can start saving time, saving not only your time but your team's time, building a better team, and start automating things. In less than 30 days, it can create some pretty wild changes. You can check that out at productivity.academy/thefoundation. I'll see you next week.